Anyone familiar with Dartmoor will know that there isn't a square mile of the place that isn't roamed by some sort of ghost, devil or spectral beastie. Either that or there'll be some curse or legend or harrowing tale from days of yore. And to stop my whimsical little podcast getting swamped by the supernatural, I'm trying to limit myself to one paranormal adventure per year. Welcome to the Dartmoor Podcast Halloween Special 2022. At least one spooky event guaranteed. On a sunny Saturday in early October, I found myself on a rickety bus heading towards one of Dartmoor's most sinister, malevolent and ungodly places. No, not the miniature pony centre. I'm headed for somewhere densely haunted even by Dartmoor standards. Wistmans Wood. To start with, let's clarify my position on the paranormal. I don't believe in it. Not at all. Not even one bit. Which is why I'd actually love to experience the unearthly. I want to have my world shaken by something I can't explain. Something that would make me rethink everything and be as a child again, open to the magic and mystery of the world. So I vowed to set my skepticism aside for just one day and go into this adventure with an open mind. After all, who knows what goes on there amongst the granite and the oaks when no one is around to see. The first stop on my mini ghost tour was Crockern Tor, a very unassuming little pile of rocks right by the B3212 that cuts across the middle of the moor. Crockern Tor has a bit of real history associated with it. Way back in the 14th century, it was situated right in the centre of Dartmoor's 4 tin mining districts, so became the meeting place for the Stannery Court. For over 200 years, whenever important decisions had to be made, the tin miners would travel here across the moor to hold their meetings in this natural amphitheatre, strewn about with great granite slabs. But as we're being Halloweeny, there is also a Dartmoor legend from this place. It is the home of Old Crockern, a bona fide Dartmoor deity, a personification of Dartmoor itself, a kind of Devon Gaia who punishes those who damage the moor. It is said that you can see the profile of his face in the stacks on the southwest corner of the outcrop. But if he was there, I didn't find him. Back to that noisy road for a moment. Perhaps one of the best known Dartmoor legends is that of the hairy hands, a pair of spectral disembodied hands that appear suddenly on a car's steering wheel and swerve them off the road. And sitting on Crockern Tor and listening to the speeding motorcyclists roaring along the B3212, I was surprised that no one seems to have suggested a connection between Old Crockern and the hairy hands. He seeks to punish those who damage the moor, and building a noisy road right through his backyard would surely be enough to anger him into causing a few crashes. Anyway, if there is a capricious nature spirit that punishes Dartmoor's enemies, then I think we're on pretty good terms. After all, I love Dartmoor and do my best to treat it with respect. And it certainly seemed like Old Crockern did me a favour with that map in episode 6. I decided to make my way towards the woods slowly, seeking out a few letterboxes en route and taking in some of the stunning views from Litterford and Longerford Tors, crossing the ancient Leash Way, an old route on which dead bodies were transported, and where, apparently, the spectres of monks make ghostly funeral processions across the moor at night. At this point, I got my first look at Wistmans Wood, low and dark, hunched in the valley below. It is certainly an unusual place. Woodland on Dartmoor is a rare enough commodity as it is, but this tiny copse is comprised almost entirely of oak trees, which the poor soil, boulder-strewn floor and howling winds of the high moor have conspired to keep dwarfish and stunted, growing in a twisted tangle of spindly branches. The etymology of Wistman is disputed, but may be derived from wise man, Wistmans Wood, as it is believed by some to be an ancient and sacred grove of the Druids. But as usual, with all this Dartmoor Druidy stuff, there's no real evidence for it. These mystical-looking symbols, for instance, certainly aren't thousands of years old. They're folk art at best, vandalism at worst, as these mosses can take a very long time to grow. But we can say with near certainty that the wood has remained here a very long time, as there are the remains of Bronze Age buildings all around which don't encroach into the wood itself. Possibly because it was a sacred pagan site of worship. Or possibly because there are just a load of boulders everywhere, making it impossible to build on. As for the age of the trees themselves, they are older than they look, but not old enough to have seen the Druids. A small tree was chopped down in Victorian times and found to be 163 years old, and by calculating the size of the trunk compared to the largest oaks, it was estimated that the oldest trees were no more than 400 years old. This little science experiment is immortalised in a carving on a rock called the Buller's Stone, which I'd forgotten to note down the exact location of and didn't find. No, really this time. Another possible origin for the wood's name is from the old Devon word wished, meaning eerie or haunted. And seeing that this is a Halloween episode, let's go with that. And this word, wished, also leads us to what is, on paper at least, the most menacing monsters in the area, the Wished Hounds, a pack of demonic dogs that kennel amongst the boulders of Wistmans Wood and wake on moonlit nights to pursue lost travellers across the moor. Perhaps the most interesting thing about the Wished Hounds is that they are a sort of folklore trope that appear in many northern European cultures. The wild hunt, where some deity chases the unbaptised to their doom. On Dartmoor, the leader of the hunt is either our friend old Crockern, or the big bad, the devil himself. As a filthy unbaptised myself, should I have been worried? Well, I reasoned that if there really were a pack of hellhounds that roamed this part of the moor and tore hikers to bloody shreds under the light of a full moon, then it might have popped up on Devon Live at some point. In fact, I was more freaked out by the other paranormal pooch of Wistmans Wood, the ghost of a small terrier called Jumbo who went missing here many years ago and whose spirit can be glimpsed scuttling amongst the mossy boulders. And while we're talking about ghostly canines and rocks that look like things, how about this rock here that looks just like a dachshund? Anyone else see that? What other supernatural presences could I expect to encounter if I snuck down into the valley to explore Wistman's Wood at night? I decided to wait for the evening in a state of meditation, thinking about the Druids and the wild hunt and old Crockern and poor little lost Jumbo. I wanted to shake off my cynicism and be ready to experience whatever the night threw my way. Light thickens, and the crow makes wing to the rooky wood. Good things of day begin to droop and drowse, while night's black agents to their praise do rouse. All right, Macbeth. I couldn't have asked for a more perfectly creepy evening, with a bloated and sickly moon seeping through a reef of scrappy clouds. The dark was punctuated by the glowing eyes of enormous cattle, who lowed sadly in the blackness as I made my descent towards the haunted grove. But the highlight of the trip was this, a very close visit from Britain's spookiest animal, flying right into my torch beam as I tried to get some eerie images of these rocks. A stunning barn owl. And maybe it was because I was so buzzingly happy after this experience that I didn't find the night scary at all. It was all rather beautiful, and I spent a while carefully shuffling along the woodland fringes, filming the delicate and strange lichens that festooned the mossy branches of the Wistman's oaks. Eventually, I retreated away from the wood, where wild camping is not permitted, to get a good night's sleep, while leaving my camera to capture a very weird and varied time-lapse of the night sky. But there was one strange thing, something I truly can't offer a good explanation for. For this to make sense, I'll have to let you in on a little secret as to how this podcast is made. Ever wonder why it sounds so gorgeous? Well, the answer is this: the Zoom HN2, a portable high-quality surround sound recorder. And when I'm off filming things like this slug or this stick, I leave it recording somewhere out of earshot, so that if I get a great shot of a slug or a stick that is ruined by me breathing heavily or rustling about in the background, I can overdub it with the unblemished nature sounds captured by my fancy microphone. And this time, when I came to start editing, amongst my recordings of the woods at night, I heard this. Sounds a lot like a little dog. Now, I'm not saying it's the sad and wandering ghost of Jumbo, but that is creepy. I mean, could it be a fox or some other sort of woodland mammal? I'd certainly be very surprised if there was someone walking their dog at that time of night, and I didn't see or hear anyone out there. But on the other hand, as unlikely as that explanation is, I still think it's more likely than that a spectral terrier visited my microphone while I was off filming moss. Being open-minded works both ways, I suppose. I headed home no closer to having my reality shattered by an interaction with the realm beyond. And I was going to do a whole bit on the psychology and biology of fear, but I just didn't get scared. There's always next year though, so I'd love to hear any suggestions that you have for Dartmoor places that will give me goosebumps. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.